Hi, everyone. I hope you can all, everybody here can see me. This is Tom Milch. My name is Tom Milch. I'm a member of the board of the Chilmark Pond Foundation. We really appreciate you all taking the time to be here. The Pond Foundation is a nonprofit supporting the science-based restoration of the ecological health of the Chilmark Pond system. And we're also joining me are other board members as well as Emily Reddington, who is running the Zoom and answers all Zoom questions. And if you have any concerns, you can direct them in the chat to her. She's monitoring the chat as well. Emily is our program director and a field biologist with 20 plus years of experience uh, in the field and many years of experience in Martha's Vineyard. The purpose of our conference call is to provide information to you about an exciting technology that we are focusing on to address toxic algae blooms in the pond, with an initial focus on the middle pond, which has been particularly hard hit from these blooms. I just want to note in passing, for those of you who have followed the foundation, that we continue to work hard on the dredging project that we are trying to implement in the lower pond. There's this word called indefatigable, and that describes Amy Salzman's efforts to get the various regulators to provide final sign off on this project. And she has just done an incredible job. And we're hopeful that we're going to be able to get it done, so we'll have it before the next summer. The current project, which was initially brought to us by one of the people on this call, I think I saw him. Don, are you here? Don Ingber and as well as Charlie Kipway, I guess, involves using the sonic technology, and we're lucky enough to have E.J. Nevsky here. He's going to present on this uh, project and explain how this works. EJ has himself 20 years of experience. He's got his PhD at Cornell. He's also worked out of the University of Virginia, and he works with LG Sonic US, which is the entity that we are talking to about undertaking this project. I want to stress that this is at an early stage. There's been no decision to proceed with it. We haven't gone through regulatory approval yet. We basically right now want to find out if if the community is enthusiastic as we are about it. And the plan is to have EJ speak for a little while. He's going to lay this out. And then we're going to open it up to questions and comments with an eye toward trying to get questions from people who live on Middle Pond first if we can, but I'm not sure the demand will be so heavy that we can't just take all questions. We'll see how that works out. Please raise your hand or otherwise indicate if you have a question because I'm not monitoring the chat. And then we're going to record the Zoom. We're recording the Zoom, and our hope is to be able to have people who couldn't make it today have an opportunity to see it as well. All with an eye toward trying to reach a consensus and a view on this technology so that we could present it for regulatory approval in time for the coming season. So that's our current hope. And with that, unless there are any other questions, I will turn it over to EJ to provide the initial presentation. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tom, for your introduction. Confirm everyone can see the slides. Perfect. So just to define the problem, algae poses some definite threats to our water quality. So one of them is taste and odor. And this is something that we deal with our recreational operators as well as our drinking water operators. But there's over 200 taste and odor compounds which are associated with each type of algae. But the most common ones that we run into are methyl isoborneol, called MIB, and geosmin. And that can really make the water not taste or smell very good. And usually, you use granular activated carbon to remove it. But for recreational applications, it's a problem because there is no such ability to filter that. And then more for recreational applications, you also have the threat of toxins. So these are cyanotoxins from cyanobacteria. These are most commonly your microcystins, cylinders rhamnopsin, anatoxins, and saxitoxins. And these are harmful to humans and animals, including our pets. So it can get our children sick and kill our dogs. And it's very easy for them to get that into their systems because they'll take a swim as they should, and then their grooming habits after a very efficient way to get that into their digestive systems and get that to the liver. So it's very efficient mortality for these toxins in terms of our pets' mortality. And some of the other effects are those listed, and we're looking to certainly refresh in our waters, not get sick. So the overabundance of toxin producing cyanobacteria is certainly an issue. And then, of course, it also affects the water chemistry. So as remember from our high school bio classes, photosynthesis, which is how cyanobacteria basically make their food, will cause the pH to go up. It also affects the dissolved oxygen. It can increase total suspended solids because cyanobacteria are in of themselves a solid that's suspended to the water, and that doesn't matter whether alive or dead. That can create some turbidity issues. And some cyanobacteria are also capable of nitrogen fixation, which can set it up for additional blooms in the heart of the season. And all of these issues are definitely problems, whether a reservoir is used for drinking water supply or also for recreation, as it is in this case. So one of the ways that we can manage harmful algal blooms is through the use of low power ultrasound. So really what this does is, if you can see in the bottom right, on the right side of the image, you can see that daily commute. So the cyanobacteria will start the day with nutrients that they absorb from the benthic zone, and then that absorption of nutrients will cause the gas vesicles to expand, put them in the position where they can photosynthesize during the day. And then as they photosynthesize, it degasses those gas vesicles, and then they sink back to the bottom of the pond, and the cycle repeats. But by using ultrasound, we place a pressure barrier in that photic zone. So that's where the sun is able to really get through into the water column so that they can make their food. And by excluding them from where they make their food, they're able to starve, and then they're able to be decomposed by the natural bacteria that are present in every pond. So we really use the ecosystem to manage itself. But one of the things that we need to make sure is that we vary the ultrasound. So there's going to be always, especially with species which have short generations like cyanobacteria, there's always going to be a subpopulation that likes what we're doing. So we like to use the water quality trends to change those ultrasonic waveforms periodically so that we keep the entire population on their toes and we don't create resistance. So we have efficacy over the long term. And of course, the ultrasonic treatment is best used when informed by water quality monitoring. So this is the framework for the buoy. You can see that right there on the left, and it's called the MPC buoy, and MPC stands for Monitor, Predict, Control. So we monitor the water quality, and those monitoring parameters are shown there on the right-hand side of the screen. And that forms our data pipeline for predicting algal blooms. So we use artificial intelligence, but also experience from our full-time staff of water quality specialist project managers to select the specific ultrasonic waveforms that we use to control algae. And additional monitoring parameters that can be included are orthophosphatase phosphorus, so that's that bioavailable phosphorus pool that drives algal blooms. And also we're finding in the literature that your nitrogen pools also have a big role to play in harmful algal bloom dynamics. So this can help with all of the nutrient management activities that are occurring along the pond and across the island. So it's very important to also do nutrient management and make sure that the watersheds are managed accordingly, along with frontline algal control too. And then, of course, we can monitor for any parameter for which there's a sensor. So if there's anything else that you're interested in, we can certainly include it. And then additionally, as an option, we do have vertical profiling. So this allows for a full accounting of the stratification and lake dynamics. This allows us to monitor the entire water column. Also helps us to track the seasonal release of phosphate from the sediments. And this helps us detect some of those pollutants and possible harmful events.
Hi, could you put it on, please mute your, please
Hi,
mute.
Mike. Let me just.
Steve Lew-
But Liz can handle it. And I'm
Steve Leuenberg needs to
I'm
turn his. Thank you.
Okay,
So this can also help
Thank you,
improve
Ellen.
decision making. So some more information about low power ultrasound is that it doesn't induce cavitation, which doesn't allow for cell lysis. So that doesn't allow the cyanobacteria to get the cyanotoxins into the water column, which would negatively affect some of the other species. And because it's low power, it's not going to impact the other non-target species. So our primary producers all the way up to fish. And also the buoy is solar powered. So it's very, very energy efficient. It's convenient and low maintenance on that basis. And because it's controlled using low power ultrasound, they will decompose naturally over time, which works with the ecosystem and avoids unintended changes that we might have in water chemistry. So the ecosystem knows what those best equilibrium points are. And even if there's a high turnover in terms of the water column, ultrasound can assist and help keeping an algae problem from getting worse. So another benefit too is that there is water quality monitoring. So these report out on a default every 30 minutes. And all of our customers have access to the MPC View water quality data dashboard. So this can also help if there's any other sorts of interventions that you have planned for your water bodies, and also for monitoring some of those baseline conditions for some of your ecological studies that you may have ongoing at the pond. So a lot of our customers get a lot of value out of this for reasons that are unrelated to harmful algal blooms too. So in terms of efficacy, this is looking at the city of Archie in Missouri, and their problem was that they were having issues at their water treatment plant, causing disinfectant byproducts due to the treatment, and the public just really had an issue with the quality of water coming out of their tap and the appearance of the reservoir. Also, the post-treatment turbidity was exceeding allowable limits just because of all the algae that was in the column. And they needed to reduce chemical usage. So there was a lot of copper, which is a legacy chemical that's used to control harmful algal blooms, and that copper was accumulating. And potassium permanganate was ineffective at dealing with the issues. And also the regulators had some problems. So they installed an MPC buoy, and within a month, the algae concentrations dramatically got reduced. The operations improved, and the public actually, again, took to Facebook and said, "What have you done with the water? This is actually looking good. The water tastes good, and what have you done with it?" And so that was a good change of pace, and the authorities and regulators were happy, and the ratepayers increased their water usage. So that was good for this utility. And then another facility out in Colorado. So the algae was causing similar issues, and within 2 weeks of installing the buoys, both the turbidity and pH both decreased. The chlorophyll A at that site were reduced by 90%, and the geosmin remained beneath 9 nanograms per liter. So definitely a major improvement in taste and odor issues. And again, the ratepayers were very, very, very satisfied with the results. And just down the road in Johnstown, similar issues. The public was definitely concerned about the quality of the water, and very very similar. After installing NPC buoys, within 2 weeks, the turbidity and pH decreased, massive reductions in chlorophyll A, and see that 95%, 99.5% reduction in the taste and odor compound. And again, positive use of social media, asking why the water actually was good, and that was definitely appreciated by the operators. So moving to Middle Pond in Chilmark. So this is the proposed installation. So right there in the middle of the pond, and then you can see the 800-meter or 2,600-foot radius of the treatment. So it's going to cover the entire pond. And the dot that's in the middle, that reflects the actual size. So it's a small, percentage of the total area that's impacted for managing the entirety of the pond. And right here you can see a picture. This, I believe, is from the UK, but it shows a kind of a moderately similar landscape to show what it would look like on the water. So it's roughly takes the size of two kayakers sitting side by side. So it's about 8 by 7 feet, even though it's a triangle, and about 3 feet tall. And you can see how it's moored right there with the white buoy. And then in terms of expense, this is the proposed installation expense. So the buoy is about 57.5K. The anchor is about 4K. The SIM card, so that's what enables the buoy to communicate with our servers, is about 350. The warning light, just to make sure that everyone knows, where the buoy is at night, is about 150. Transport's about 6,000, and then full setup is about 7,000 for a total of just over 75K. And then in terms of recurring costs, this is interactive algae control. So that's the project management on our end. So this helps, pay for the storage of the data, and also for the project management by our staff, and also the calibration of the water quality sensors. So this would kick in year 2. So this is included with year 1, and that comes out to be just above 8K. So at this point, I'm happy to turn it over to you all for questions.
EJ, before we
Thank you
go to
so much.
questions, could you describe the anchor and how that works for the system? I think people would be interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just bring it back to the proposed installation, what the visual impact is. So you can see that white buoy, and then the two blue floaters. That's the mooring system for the buoy. And so running down from that white anchor is a chain that's attached to a 225-pound concrete block. And then there's another sub chain that's attached to a hook anchor, so that would go into the sediment itself. So those both would, provide definite strong protection for the buoy, keep it in place. And it's a very strong system. We've had hurricanes near or generally over some of our installations in Florida this past year, with Hurricane Milton in particular. And we had, full data connectivity at all times through there. We were able to see the turbidity spike while the hurricane was hitting. And it's definitely designed to withstand some pretty severe storms.
Yeah, and the other part of this is we'd have to get the anchor into the pond, and that would require, as I understand, it's a significant piece of concrete, right? That would have to be taken down, and then we'd have to row it out there. Is that the way it would work?
That's right. Usually we have a method of being able to basically have a piece of plywood on the the front of the boat, and then our operations staff can essentially push the concrete block off of it, and it'll sink into its desired position. But we also have some other options too. So we can use a float with a kayak if that's really what the community requires. But we can definitely be creative in terms of how we get that anchored out there.
Okay. Okay, with that, Emily, unless you have something to add, we can open it up to questions. Emily, do you have anything you want to say first?
I don't have anything to add, but we've started to get some questions and we have some raised hands. So I don't know how you want to start.
Okay, well, I'll just turn to Steve Cass and let him start since he's got his hand up, and we'll take other questions as they come.
Thank you, Tom. The examples you gave had to do largely with odor and taste, EJ. Do you have comparable or even more quantitative data about nutrients and cyanobacteria?
Yeah. So one of the things that we see in our projects is a shift from cyanobacteria dominance to chlorophyll dominance. So that's more of your green algae. And one of the things that I always like to make clear is that the ultrasound is not necessarily going to reduce nutrients. In fact, it probably won't. But what it will do is it'll allow for the nutrients to be used for much more productive applications. So one of the things that we see in limnology is cyanobacteria are not really good food for the rest of the primary producer population. They're really not recognized as food. And once we're able to shift the community dominance to chlorophyta, that really is great, ultimate fish food. And you see the primary producers be able to consume it, and then that has a positive cascade all the way up the trophic structure, all the way up to fish. So what you see is the nutrients getting used for a very healthy trophic structure, which includes fish, and also by opening up the water column to light, you're also able to get a restoration of some of the submerged aquatic vegetation that so some of your larger species like to consume. So it really returns it to more of a healthy ecosystem, and so the nutrients are going towards positive results. And there are some limited opportunities for nutrient export via fishing, but those are the main opportunities. And of course, you still have to make sure that all of the nutrient management at the watershed scale are always being done, because we always want to make sure that we're keeping as much nutrients out of the pond as we can.
Sarah?
Oh, Tom, there are some questions before that too. Joan Malkin and John Friedman had asked about the photic zone and what level did the bacteria photosynthesize, and specifically with Chilmark Pond. So they're looking for, given this is a shallow pond, how would this work in this pond specifically?
Yeah, it's a good question. Go ahead.
So before you answer it, can I broaden the question, because it occurred to me in looking at the other ones? What I'm really what I'm really interested in is the likelihood of success in our pond. And I don't know whether you've made a site visit. Have you?
Not yet. I'm always
Okay.
interested.
So the reason I ask that is because it is extremely shallow in some places. And it is also very fresh water at the outlet, where the water comes in, but it's quite brackish at the portion of the pond which is closest to the ocean. So in those various environments, and given its shallowness, and I just would like your view as to the prospects for success. It's an expensive experiment, so we'd want to hope that it was going to make a difference.
Yeah, we're very confident in efficacy. We've had excellent, success with systems in, water as shallow as really three feet. And we also have experience in, both fresh and brackish systems. So, fresh in terms of, some of the, conservation applications that we've had, the reservoirs, and also brackish in terms of, some of the processed water lagoons that we also treat and manage for some power generation, cooling ponds. So those can have, elevated salinity, and we have success in those situations as well.
So how far below the surface of the water? Because when we empty the pond, I don't, it does go down considerably. How far does the device extend into the water?
So the draft of the device is going to be about 18 inches.
That's fine.
Okay, I do have a follow-up question, but Sarah, you've been waiting, so why don't you ask your question first?
Yeah, it's similar to Jones. I'm actually interested because most of the examples you gave were in freshwater. How well does this technology work in saltwater and brackish water, which is more characteristic of the other parts of Chilmark Pond, and particularly for getting rid of cyanobacteria?
Yeah, it definitely works quite well because we've had extensive experience with elevated salinity applications for cooling water, for power generation, cooling ponds. So we're able to get the cyanobacteria population under control in those situations as well.
Could you address the whether what someone who lives on the pond would hear, if anything, from this equipment?
Nothing.
And animals wouldn't either?
No.
Don?
Yeah, EJ, when we spoke to you last time, you mentioned that this would get taken out during winter and that you could help do that and store it. Is that included in the cost that the annual $8,000 cost?
It would be an additional fee, but it's certainly something that we can discuss with the community.
Or could it be left in all year?
The main concern is if there's any ice, or if it's really too cold, that it would damage the equipment.
Right.
But I mean, if the temperature is above 40 degrees, it should be okay.
Well, it gets colder than that. So we
Yeah.
need that price too, is one thing I wanted to comment. The other question I had for you is, it's a pretty sophisticated system with all of the sensors and the ability to vary the frequency and probably intensity. Is that something you do? It does automatically? Are you learning during it so that it's getting better and better, or is it just like set at one setting?
So it's a combination of machine learning and also human experience from our full-time staff of water quality specialists that do project management. And so it has the ability to respond automatically, but we also can intervene manually as well. So if there's some water quality trends which suggest that we should use a certain program, then our after sales team will make that adjustment, and that'll be right there on the operational record on the MPC View water quality.
So are you monitoring it, or are we monitoring it
So
constantly?
everyone's monitoring it. So we monitor it for operation, and the customer or operator will monitor it for essentially accountability, so that they can understand how the system is reacting, and get full transparency on how it's functioning.
So you'll monitor it, and if you think it could be more functional or more efficacious, you will make changes to the system. We're basically watching.
That's correct. Although, if there's any, on the water observations that you have that suggests that we should, consider an operational change, then we will certainly take that into consideration. And that's one of the things that we like to do is maintain, really open lines of communication between us and our customers, just to make sure that any mid-course corrections, we can make those, very quickly. And, what the sensors that are on the buoy are important, but that's not the universe of data and observation. So we take all observations very seriously.
And my last comment or question is for you the last time we spoke, a bunch of people asked, would this hurt the fish or any of the aquatic animals? And I think the answer is no, but I just want, maybe you could describe that.
Yeah, absolutely not. And we've found we have actually have an aquaculture market segment that we serve, and we've done studies, and we have a study in which we had a control pond. The fish, increased their biomass by 11% in that pond, and then we had another pond equivalent conditions, but with ultrasound, and the fish increased their biomass by 53%. So that better water quality is certainly, makes them able to thrive. And we also had another study where they could express preference in the short term. So you had an experimental and a control pond connected by a raceway, so they could express preference, and they didn't. And another observation that's a lot of our service people have seen is when they pull up to a buoy, they'll find fish congregating under the buoy itself. They find it to be really good habitat. It's kind of similar to a log over a stream, that they really will like it and really see it as a refugia. So if they're hiding out from predators or just enjoying the shade, they really do find that to be a good habitat location.
Thank you.
EJ, how long has this been used in the US? How long has?
So at this point, it's been probably going on over 10 years at this point. So maybe 11 years at this point.
Okay, are there other questions? Please.
They're in the chat, Tom. 3 have come
Yeah.
up. JB Lyon said, when have you found it didn't work? Are there any downsides to the system? How many systems have you deployed?
So in terms of operational challenges, really the only constraints are the fact that some of the most hypereutrophic ponds may require multiple seasons to really get it to what you would consider to be a success. But really over time we will get the upper hand. In terms of number of systems, we're installed essentially coast to coast from Rhode Island all the way out to California and Hawaii. So we've installed those all over the country, and really the only continent that doesn't have one of our systems operating is Antarctica, and we'll see in the future about that one. But what was part 3 of the question again?
How many systems?
Yeah, I think what people are interested in is if you could describe what you think. People are trying to gauge here when it doesn't work, why doesn't it work? Can you just, if that's the case, that it sometimes doesn't work, why doesn't it work?
Yeah, I mean, really it's a matter of not working in time. So if you have like a really hyper-eutrophic lake, which has had probably 75 years of really heavy nutrient inputs, such that you're really having a high octane fuel for harmful algal blooms, it's going to be challenging to really knock that down to what you consider to be an acceptable outcome in a season. Now, if you're able to have multiple seasons, so 3 years of treatment, then you would start to see approaching a significant change that you would say that the water quality has improved. But those situations are really you're 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 10,000 situations. So if it's on the lower end of hypereutrophic and below, really it's perfectly reasonable application for our technology. It's just really the worst of the worst that may require some patience.
There's another question. I can answer this one. Will the ongoing pond monitoring continue? Yes, it will, the same way it has before in previous seasons. So there'll be the extra, if this device were deployed, you'd have the real-time data collected by the device, but still our team would be in there collecting samples and doing BCINO. So there'd be a good comparison before and after the device was installed. And then there's another question from Peter Bruce. Does the device only affect areas of the pond with line of sight to the device?
Yes, it does. So if there's any adjustments that we have to make to ensure maximum line of sight, then we can certainly make those.
Okay, Sandy and then Joan. Sandy, why don't you start?
And I'm here too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sandy.
You're muted, Sandy. You're muted.
Sorry about that. My question is, when you start this process in area that needs help, in a pond that water area that needs help, is it perennial? Does it have to keep going? In your experience in the past 10 years, have you had any installation that after a few years, the pond seems to be restored to health and you can remove this sonic buoy?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's something we need to keep in there indefinitely because we are seeing in certain circumstances oligotrophic, so nutrient poor lakes that get harmful algal blooms anyway. So especially with the warming atmosphere, we're seeing that algal population really be able to do more with less. So just because the temperature is higher, so it is important to maintain that treatment, into the future to make sure that the lake continues to be healthy.
Joan?
Yeah, my question, I keep being, I'm such a skeptic. I mean, I just hope this is great, but I'm sort of want to know, are there any things that would cause you to want to make a site visit? And sort of in connection with that, are you familiar? We have, nitrogen in our ponds is a really big problem, but I can't tell you what the data is, but we certainly have data which tells you what the level is and the temperature. It gets pretty hot. So my question is, are you sufficiently familiar with this pond's characteristics that you remain confident, or are there things that you could be better informed about to give us a better idea of what the process could look like? A 5-year process, a 2-month process, a forever process?
Yeah, I'm definitely confident in its efficacy. However, I'm always interested to learn more about all of our potential projects. So I always advocate for site visits. So I'm
Great.
certainly interested.
Great.
Yeah,
And
we have data. Emily can provide you more data. I'm not sure how much you.
my other question, which isn't exactly a follow-up, is that I live in the inlet, the northernmost inlet of the pond, and the cyanobacteria congregates there. It lives there, and it lives there like an oil slick. And it doesn't appear to lurk at the bottom. It appears to just simply thrive at the top. So those guys seem happy at the top. They're not going to be prevented by the sonic system from going to the top. They just hang out there forever. Is that something that you've observed or not?
Yeah. So those types of superficial scums are certainly something that we've seen when we've put systems in, and then they disappear once we have the system operational.
Good, I hope so.
Larissa, I'm sorry, I couldn't see your hand, so please go ahead.
Well, I have questions and comments. I have a question and a comment. As the pond really separates into 3 different entities, the very lower, the middle, and the upper. And each one of those has had much differing experiences with this bacteria. And it has to do a lot with the proliferation over the last, 25, 30, 40 years of housing and septic systems and the issues that have contributed. It's not just the warming climate that have contributed to these ponds being in trouble. And I just feel like, okay, we're going to spend $75,000 and $8,000 a year and have something that probably in the larger pond will have 4 to 5, 7 to 8 foot, 7-foot tall structures with lights on them. I'm just wondering how it seems like, okay, we're going to try to keep this at bay, but we're not dealing with the sources of it. And I don't think we're making a particularly strong statement about that. And I think the other thing is, there could be an extremely uneven placement of these buoys too. I mean, we've had very little of it on the upper pond, and we have very few septic systems up there.
Clarissa, your point about dealing with the cause of the problem, not just the symptoms, is really important. Where's the nitrogen coming from and how do you stop that? That's one of the things the foundation's working on. I know the MVC is working on that. Many different groups are working on that. So thinking about how to stop the nitrogen that's currently entering and the legacy nitrogen that's already in the groundwater is a huge part of the problem, a part of the solution. But there need to be solutions in the short term and the long term. So cutting the pond, dredging the pond takes care of some of the flushing, but you have to get the source that's coming in. But what this sonic buoy could do was stop the production of toxicity locally immediately. But both avenues have to be tackled if you're going to protect ecosystem health. So you're absolutely right, looking at what's causing the problem and putting a stop to that as well. And the work the foundation's doing with the Marine Biological Laboratory is getting at where those sources are coming from. And right now, Middle Pond is part of that, and some of the streams. So we're getting more resolution about exactly where that's coming in from. So that's absolutely being done, but just not the point of today's discussion.
I understand that. I'm also very concerned about the cost. I mean, it's very expensive. And I know the ponds are in trouble, but some of us are not in positions to be taxed further. So that's some of my concerns. And of course, I'm sure others share the aesthetic issues of these buoys. And I'm wondering if there's any other systems that could be explored that are not so dramatically and affecting the aesthetics of the pond, and particularly lights at night and the size of these structures. We also are dealing with a huge wind farm right off the south shore of our island with blinking red lights at night. And there's been a lot of concern about that, the lights. So, these are all good things to be pursuing, cleanliness of the ponds and cleaner energy, but there are other concerns too. I'm just making a statement.
Thank you.
You.
Are there other questions? I'm sorry, I don't get to see everybody at one time. So if you can speak up if you have a question.
I just like to make a comment. I think Clarissa's points are all great. You have to view this as an experiment. I think, there's hope. I think, Emily, maybe you could comment on this, but my understanding is that the blooms often start in the middle pond, and that if we could control the middle pond, we may not need many of these in the lower pond. And I don't think it's 7 feet high. EJ is.
Oh,
No.
it's 7 by 8 by 3 feet high.
Oh,
It's
3
3
feet
feet.
high. Okay.
Yeah.
7 by 8.
That's what I want. That's what I was.
Well, I
trying to
just
say.
went and measured 7 by 8.
Yeah.
And
So it's
counters. And
more like
that is considerable. As you said, that's 2 large kayaks.
right. It's like kayaks sitting in the middle, being moored in the middle of the pond. EJ, is that light on all the time? Is it blinking? Is it on at night? How does that only at night?
So
I mean,
it's a solar powered, warning light. It's actually an optional part of it. So if it's there to prevent, any sort of, navigational hazard, at night. But if the community, is okay with, where it is, knows where it is, we can omit that from the system design. If that's an aesthetic concern that overrides, any safety concerns. So we can accommodate that. I just want to make sure that I have safety first, but it's definitely could be deleted.
EJ, I think the one thing about the line of sight point, if you go back to the picture of the pond with the device in it, if you can readily understand how there could be, particularly in summer, there could be line of sight issues for some parts of the pond. But I think picking up on Joan's point, I think it's important that the line of sight clearly include the inlet that comes in because towards South Road, because that's where its problem's particularly bad.
Yeah, we can certainly, optimize that
Yeah.
mooring location such that we're able to have contact with that.
I hate to be the one to ask all the questions, but I have another clarifying question. Did you say that the device does not impact the nutrification, well, in that sense, the nitrogen levels, but which, and the nitrogen level, I suspect, is what is causing the cyanobacteria to be so happy. But what your device does is deals with the cyanobacteria and will deal with the nitrogen some other way?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And there's some questions in the chat that have been there for a while. I don't know if we want to get to those.
Well, before you do, John Friedman and Steve Cass both have their hands up. So John Friedman, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at that map photograph. It looks like that's going to be parked right off of my kayak launch.
That's not the parking spot. That was just to demonstrate the size of it.
Could you show the locations again? The proposed locations?
This is not a proposed location. This is to show you what the size of the device would be with respect to the pond and what its range would be. This is not the proposed location.
We don't
So
have a
it's not like
proposed
multiple in the pond?
One.
One.
Yep. That's the plan. Steve?
I'm still following up on my question, which Joan followed up on. So this will deal with cyanobacteria, but it will not deal with nutrients as such. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Can Steve, can I add a little bit to that, where I think one of the things that it also will do, and EJ's been using technical words like turbidity, which I didn't know until recently. One of the other benefits of this device is that it improves the clarity of the pond, so that other critters and other plants that need more sunlight will be able to compete with the cyanobacteria, which at this point is kind of the monster eating up everything, because it seems to thrive and grow at a faster rate than the things that actually are not harming, or it's just thrown things out of balance, so that it allows the balance to return without the domination of cyano.
So this is just to be just clear, and then I'll shut up. This is a useful device. It's not the whole program, and it has to be
a symptom. It's treating a symptom.
And it can shift the phytoplankton population. You can get it to resemble the community more of healthy ponds. So the light's more available to organisms that you want to photosynthesize rather than ones that are blooming or taking over and destroying the balance. So you're getting help shifting the ecosystem to a healthier one, but it's not removing the nutrients.
You're getting rid of toxins. It's not just getting rid of one bug. You're getting rid of the bug that produces the toxins that everyone's worried about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Ellen, I thought I saw your hand up.
Yeah, no, it's Richard. He wants to get in on this conversation.
Yeah, and I think Emily, it's
my husband.
It's what Emily. I think it's what you were just saying, and what I heard from EJ was that this process will convert the cyanobacteria into a better food source, so that the nitrogen is taken up by other things, whether that's plants or fish.
That's correct. So it essentially makes those nutrients that are in the pond more useful to the entire ecosystem rather than
it is a nitrogen management system, not a nitrogen removal system.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think we also should respond to Clarissa's question about cost and who's paying for this. And perhaps the foundation should make clearer that at this point, the foundation's project. It is not something that the community will be taxed for. Certainly we'll be asking for your support. But this initial, I mean, this is not a Chilmark Town initiative. It is the private Chilmark Pond Foundation that is hoping to deploy this device.
Yeah, I was going to come back to that. Thank you, Amy.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Emily, you said you had some chat questions. I wanted to make sure you could follow up with those.
Jim Warner asked how many systems would be required to cover the whole Chilmark Pond. And I think one thing that was answered is the source, and this doesn't cover everything, so EJ, I'd love you to follow up. But if the blooms are starting in Middle Pond, which we've seen, and then going down the creek, if we stop them at the source, it's possible that only the middle pond device was required. But in terms of area coverage, EJ, if you had to get it to the other ponds, do you know how many you would need?
So just a napping calculation, so it'll be one for every 100 acres of water. So, and also, the only caution on that is the line of sight issues, but that's the general napping calculation.
The other question from Sarah is, how do we prevent birds from roosting on the structure?
So that's an important question. We do have basically it's a slinky that's like basically runs along the triangular top of the buoy, and that's such that to deter most of the birds. Now it's not going to deter all of them, and that's why it's important to make sure that they're cleaned every couple of months. So make sure that the solar panels are cleaned off regularly. But we've had good luck with that program, and they maintain full power. And another nice thing about the telemetry on the system is we can see what the output of the solar panels are at all times. So if we need to schedule a preventative maintenance squeegee job on the solar panels, we certainly can do so.
You could provide them to the riparian owners and they could have some exercise, get out there and squeegee them.
If that's what you like to do, certainly.
Another
pay.
That would be the dangerous thing that we would do.
Tom, another question. What is the warranty on the device, given that you say it must be left in the pond essentially forever? How long does each unit last, or what's the warranty on it?
So there's part-specific warranty, but our minimum expected service life is 10 to 15 years, and we've never had to really replace a full buoy, except for one time that we had a warehouse out in Colorado that burned down in a wildfire, so we had to replace that one. But it is a modular design, so we can replace parts and keep buoys in service indefinitely.
And what's the warranty?
So depending on the specific part, it's 1 to 5 years. So I can get you that detailed information as well.
We were told 5 years in the first conversation.
And then one of the questions was answered about lifespan of the installation. And then is there a threshold for pre-existing fish, larger organism population? Can we put the mooring in ourselves? Do we do this all the time in Chilmark? Or we do this all the time in Chilmark, sorry. If I butchered your question, please feel free to say it yourself.
No, that was my question. It's Gary Motto. And I was wondering, do we have to seed organisms into the pond to deal with the nutrients that are left behind that the cyanobacteria are not consuming? Do you understand?
Yeah, so we find that the native, benthic bacteria population is sufficient to deal with the sedimented out biomass. So all the algae that we knock out of suspension, the bacteria can eat them, and they're almost always fit for task. I know that there are some applications where they have used certain species of bacteria as an additive, and they've had success with that, but it's not required across the board.
The other part, which is not related to that, was putting in a mooring is a common activity in a marine environment. So we could put in a block. Is it some sort of special concrete, or is it a typical 5,000 PSI concrete with a hook on it?
Yeah. So if you're interested in providing your own mooring, that's certainly something that we can support, and that does make the installation a lot easier. So that's perfectly fine. We have a number of applications where they've done exactly that.
Good. That seemed to be a $6,000 item. So, and we would have boats available potentially to help with the installation and so on.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Doug asked a question that said, given this device doesn't address the underlying causes of cyanobacteria, which I assume is from the continuing nitrogen runoff, is this a forever project with an $8,000 a year annual cost? How many years will we need to do it? And that might have partially been answered that, yes, we have to deal with the nitrogen. The annual cost is about 8,000. And EJ is suggesting this is a unit that would get deployed annually.
That's correct.
So this is Doug Bohr. I'm the author of that question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So take it at its worst, and I'm doing this intentionally. If you have a 5-year warranty and you tell us that it's going to take 10 to 15 years to clean this up, at its worst, and I'm exaggerating the point to make a point, that means you've got to spend in uninflated dollars, $75,000 a year, 2 or 3 times over 15 years. And you got to spend another $8,000 a year uninflated for 15 years. That's a huge amount of money. It's $250,000. Am I getting it right, or am I way overstating it?
So it's not that's the service life. That's not when you'll see efficacy. Efficacy we usually see within 3 weeks.
Okay.
So the 75K is the initial capital expense, and then the 8K is the OpEx. So that's year two and onward.
So this is not a forever project.
It is a forever project, but only on the operational expense side. So the 8K.
And
That
ultimately,
assumes that it lasts, that the equipment lasts for a longer period of time, but clearly it wouldn't last forever, so you'd have to replace it at some point.
And ultimately, everyone's working to reduce the nitrogen coming into the pond. So theoretically, with all the projects, dredging, nutrient reduction, we will have temperatures to deal with, but if you reduce the nutrients, the need for this could go away. There are many ponds on the island that don't have cyanobacteria blooms, though fewer. Jim Warner had another question. What's the local?
Actually, can I interrupt for a sec? This is Doug Bohr again. I'm sorry to monopolize, but if you say it's 8,000 a year and there's a 3-week cure period, that's still $200,000 over the life of the project over 15 years. Is that right? Or is that still overstating it? 8,000 a year, 15 years, plus the 75,000 to buy it.
Right.
Dredging is a lot more expensive.
Eight times 10 is 80,000. So it's 120,000 over 15 years for the OpEx.
Plus the 75, so it's $200,000 over 15 years.
But dredging is a lot more expensive. Right. A lot more expensive.
A lot more.
Not probably permissible.
Sounds like a bargain.
The question is, what's the local governance required to go forward?
Luckily, we have people on the phone who know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But
What was the question? What is the local what?
Governance required to go forward. I'm imagining what kind of approvals would need to be in place. And is this a question for the Concom? I see Sandy's raised her hand.
You're muted again, Sandy.
It would have to go in front of Concom, also the harbor master and the shellfish warden. I would think also zoning. So it would need, a presentation and approval by those entities. And also site review, I would imagine, too, would begin there.
okay.
John Friedman,
Yeah.
he had a comment. I don't know if you want that read.
Yeah, no, go ahead. We're going to wrap up here because it's 4 o'clock, but go ahead.
Okay, John said I have to drop off in a moment. I would advocate if we go forward to emit the light, site it as best possible to avoid direct lines of sight, which will be challenging, I understand, and get a clear proposal for ongoing maintenance and repairs where it would be stored, where the temperature risks going below 40 degrees, which is October through April, and other positive commentary from JB Lyon that says sounds fantastic. There's 2 more if you want them before we go. One question, is there any chance to get this in before summer? Do your clients secure any forms of insurance for this installation? Doug asked that one. Do your clients secure any forms of insurance for this installation?
Related to liability, etc.
Maybe that's one we can take off later, since we're out of time.
Okay. And then a thank you from Sam Pease for all that you're doing leading this effort. I think the most important short-term goal is that we detoxify this pond so all of us, especially the kids, can use it without worry, and the pets and Osprey to be safe and happy.
Okay, well, EJ, we will follow up with you on these other points, particularly the insurance. And I want to thank everybody for participating in the call today. Very useful, a lot of really good questions and comments. And on behalf of the foundation, I just want to thank everybody for participating and adding value. And Emily, thank you in particular. Okay, with that, we're signing off.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.